welcome to another episode of The Balanced Perspective. I'm your host, Chairman and CEO of EDW and Renaissance Global Media. Today we have the one and the only Dr. Nashlie Sephus. Dr. Nashlie, thank you so much for being with us today.
I appreciate you for having me.
So, before we jump into my first question about who is Nashlie Sephus, what is a tech evangelist?
All right, so I am a principal AI evangelist at Amazon Web Services.
Does it have anything to do with religion?
No,
okay.
No. So,
right.
Well, most people think when they think of evangelism, and even in the religious sense, it means going where you haven't gone before and spreading some good news.
Yes.
And so in terms of tech evangelists or AI evangelists, we're trying to reach audiences that normally aren't reached and to tell them everything about AI, how to use it responsibly, how to use it to your benefit, and also to be aware of, the limitations of it. So that is what I do. At the core of that, I'm an AI scientist that basically knows how to speak to people.
Wow.
Yes.
I think this is probably going to be my most fun interview that I've had today. So, who is Nashlie Sephus? Tell us a little bit about who you are and your story.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Murray High School graduate, class of 03. I was a big into music and the marching band. I remember going to a summer camp that my mom let me go to after my 8th grade year. And that summer camp was all about women in engineering. It was a girls' summer camp for engineering for like a couple weeks. And we talked about all the different types of engineering and computer engineering. On the day we studied that, it just blew my mind because you typing in letters and numbers into a computer and you can pretty much control everything around you. Wow. And I just thought that was so cool. And I was like, I want to learn more about this. And so from that point on, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I was always kind of split between my music background because I was this close to majoring in music too. Wow. But I ended up going forward with computer engineering. And I grew up in a home full of women, my mom, my grandmother, my sister. And so we did a lot of stuff hands-on. And so we had to fix things. We had to mow the yard. We had to put up the Christmas lights, change the ceiling fan, stuff like that. And so it really just helped me build this whole narrative that women can do whatever they need to do. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot just by being such a hands-on and having the privilege to do that. And I remember my mom got us a computer. I think I was in middle school at the time, and or even elementary school, and I was like the only one that knew how to use the computer in the house. And so everybody would come to me to try to get help to use a computer, and somehow I was figuring it out. And I just kind of had a knack for it. So that's kind of my upbringing and kind of how I got inspired to get into this field.
Wow, so what was your first job in the tech space?
My first job in the tech space was when I was at Mississippi State for undergrad. I went to undergrad. I was doing websites on the side. So I was trying to get some extra money, right? Because, poor undergraduate student. Yeah. And, eating noodles and, Chef Boyardee and crackers. And so I was like, hey, let me get a little bit of money. Oh, probably chicken. But I think it was just a testament to, I'm in school, I'm learning, I'm having a difficult time with the culture shift because Mississippi State's a predominantly white institution. And I grew up in Jackson Public Schools, majority Black. And then everyone in my environment, it wasn't as conducive to helping me learn about technology. And so I somehow, started learning how to do websites and started doing them for churches. And so I was making extra money on the side. And so I remember my first internship was actually with Miller Transporters. I worked in their IT department. It was actually here in Jackson off of Highway 80 going towards Clinton. And so I learned so much at that job. Really, I attribute so much to just learn about the basics of IT and the fundamentals and just how to have sound processes and practices. Even in cybersecurity, I attribute it to that job because I had so much hands-on experience, and it pretty much let us run the entire IT part of that whole company.
Wow. And so let's talk about how that first job kind of sped up things, so to speak. I mean, of course, we know about your affiliation with Amazon, but a lot of people don't know about the companies that you owned previously and that experience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so throughout my tenure of undergrad at Mississippi State and then going to grad school at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, I worked at several companies, interned at several companies, including IBM, GE, worked at several different orgs within GE, GE Energy, GE Research. Also worked for a consulting firm where we did a lot of litigation cases where they would call me in as the expert witness and I would help write up reports to help.
So you've got a legal background as well.
A little bit. I do a lot of actually help with a lot of our policy work at Amazon too, because a lot of those people, as you know, they often don't have backgrounds in technology, but they're making all these decisions about technology. And so they really need a lot of help, a lot of advising in how to kind of navigate these spaces. But a lot of that started in those different jobs that I worked at. And I remember having one of my jobs at Delphi. When I finished Mississippi State, I went to Delphi to work. It was a part of a fellowship program that I was in. So Delphi used to make all the Bluetooth radios and like the Toyota Camrys and all the cars. And so he made a lot of navigation systems back then too. And so at that point I was testing out AI. This was 2008, 2007-ish. And we were trying to get the Bluetooth radio in our cars to dial a certain number, and they would use my voice actually to test the system because I had a southern accent. And this was up in Indiana, and so it would never, get some of my voice right. Like, it would never get the number 6 right, and it would never get like 8 right. And so they would love just testing it on me because they're like, man, because we try to get it to work, but it wouldn't work for my accent. And so it just brings it full circle of kind of what I'm doing and helping with, biases in AI and how do certain products work for people of different backgrounds, and how are we measuring that, and are we aware of that, and are we being inclusive with our technology and even the policy that is around that technology too.
I don't know that brought about something that came up within the last couple of years, even in bathrooms, so to speak. Putting your hand up under this faucet, and you have to go 2, 3, 4, 5 times before it recognizes, hey, I'm trying to wash my hands here. I don't know. That's interesting because I've been reading a little bit about of biases in AI, but that's not something that you naturally think about. That a man-made machine is going to inherently be biased. But I mean, if men are making them, I mean, we all have inherent biases.
All humans have biases.
Yeah.
Every human. I mean, it's what makes us unique.
Absolutely.
Right. It's all our backgrounds come together, and we're able to create something. When we work together, we're able to create something great.
Yeah. So you did a stint in Atlanta doing some work. What was that like?
So I was, and I didn't even answer your earlier question of how I got to the company that we sold, but I can lead up to that. So I went to Atlanta for graduate school at Georgia Tech, which is definitely no easy feat, but I was able to get out. I made it out, and with my PhD, and that was, I call it my come to Jesus moment, because it was tough. I mean, I had to really learn on what faith was to get out of that program. And because you're the only one, right?
Yeah.
Now I experienced that at Mississippi State, but at Georgia Tech it's on a whole nother level. You're not only sometimes the only one, the only female sometimes in the room, the only black person. Oftentimes you're the only person born in the United States, and you're in these areas, in these classes, and so you have to really take it a step further. And how do you learn people and people skills and relating with people? And so that definitely grew as a challenge at first. I went through a couple of advisors. It took me several times to pass my qualifying exams. It was really a testament of, this is a challenging program. They're not giving these degrees away. And if I'm gonna be successful, then I gotta really reach down deep into whatever I got and make it. And I also remember that, I feel like, God wouldn't have me there if I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that didn't finish. They always say, look to your left, look to your right. It was like, look to your left, your right, your front, your back, kind of cat a corner. They not gonna, none of them gonna be there. And that was so true. It was like, man. And so it was interesting, but that put me in a good position because Atlanta at the time was going through almost like a transformation. Atlanta became really famous, of course, during the civil rights movement. It became really famous during like the music era of hip hop music, and then the construction era of think about the Olympics, the airport, all the headquarters that are there, and all of this kind of culminated together after several mayors were intentionally putting forth these initiatives to make everything just kind of work together. And so you had a lot of wealthy people who got their money on all sides, Black, white, Democrat, Republican, from that whole rebuilding Atlanta era. And this was around the 90s, early 2000s. Then we started to get into this tech era, and Atlanta is slowly becoming the tech startup capital of the Southeast. Mm. And so we were a part of that. And so I had all these connections, meeting all these people I went to Georgia Tech with, people they connected me with who had ideas for startup companies. And we were raising money. I met a young lady who, she was in the parts, she used to work at a parts manufacturer. She was a Howard grad, Jewel Burks Solomon, shout out to her. She was ended up being the CEO of this company called PartPick. And so what PartPick was, PartPic, she was working in the manufacturing customer service, and they would call and say, hey, I need this part. Can you get it to me? And she did this research that companies would send the wrong parts, like a lot. And it was millions of dollars they were spending trying to get the right part because they would send the wrong part. And she said, well, hey, just take a picture of it and send it to me instead of trying to describe it to me, trying to, point it out in this catalog that's like 1,000 pages long. And so they would send the picture and then she would be able to easily find it. So she had the idea, what if I could use AI to cut out, this whole interaction with me and them sending the picture? They just upload a picture to an app. The AI algorithm recognizes the part and it sends them a link to where they can directly purchase that part. Wow. And so that was how PartPick started. She had the idea. She needed someone to help her build it. And so this is where a lot of people, especially in our communities, we have the breakdown. We have the wonderful ideas because we're very innovative, mm-hmm. Especially here in the South. Like you got to really, build something from nothing here, right? And so all the innovation comes out of that. They say that, necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
And so we were able to build a prototype for her. And I was in grad school at the time, and I was trying to get out of school, so I was like, y'all leave me alone, I'm trying to get out, but when I heard her story, I was like, okay, let me try to help her. I think I can help her build this thing, because that was my area, AI, at the time. It wasn't even called AI at the time, it was more so machine learning. And so I was able to build a prototype. She was able to take that prototype and raise $1.5 million with that prototype, and she needed a full-time CTO. And so that's when I became a CTO full-time after I finished Georgia Tech. I had a little break in there where I went to New York City and I was working as a
CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Chief Technology Officer, okay. Yes. And I say that because I learned so much through that whole process of that startup, which, by the way, we ended up selling to Amazon. Wow. And 2 years later, so in 2016, we sold that company. I was able to cash out some of my shares, mm-hmm. And come back home and do some investment. But what I learned from that whole process was if we don't have someone to help build that first prototype, that's really what gets you a lot of those investments. Because mm-hmm. ideas are cheap, right? Yeah. Unless you can really show, hey, this is a feasible thing, we can build it, we can market it, people will spend money on it, and create a business out of it. That's what gets funded. It's not the ideas. It's half the time it's really not even the patents. It's really how can you take this product from an idea to market. And that's what I learned, that if we had a lot more helping these entrepreneurs build out these technical prototypes, like build these things out that they've been thinking about, and help give them some help on it, then I think that a lot more folks will become successful tech startup founders.
So what does that look like to create an ecosystem that fosters that type of ingenuity and creativity?
Well, it has to have all the pieces, like any ecosystem. It has to have all the pieces to be a successful ecosystem. So in a tech ecosystem, and again, I saw this develop around me in Atlanta. Atlanta had, so for example, Georgia Tech is one of the top engineering schools in the country, and it produces the most amount of Black and brown engineers, especially in graduate school, outside of the HBCUs. And so being a top school, producing, having a focus on diversity, and also being in the Southeast, that was a ticket for, the golden ticket to create this tech ecosystem where a lot of tech people were developed. Now, Atlanta itself, a lot of people don't realize Atlanta itself, especially during that time, 2008, for that next 10 years, was not a place where a lot of tech companies were. So a lot of us were getting educated. We would leave Atlanta. Atlanta had a brain drain problem too. Wow. So we would get educated, we would leave. Most of my colleagues I graduated with at Georgia Tech, even at the other schools, not just Georgia Tech, but they would have to leave to get tech jobs. They would go to DC. DC was a great place to get like a government job or with a government agency. They would hire engineers like crazy. All the government contractors, California especially, a lot of people left and went there. New York City, it just were a lot of jobs in Atlanta. And so, but that all changed when this ecosystem started growing. They started realizing, wow, Atlanta has a lot of diversity. It has a lot of top tech talent. And there's a lot of wealthy people there. Why don't somebody make this connection and say, hey, you wealthy people, can you start investing in some of these people's ideas and let's see where this takes us? And so even our first investment at ParkPick at the time as a startup, nobody in Atlanta wanted to invest. We only had one investor from Atlanta. Everybody else was from outside of the Southeast. Most people at the time were only investing in real estate. And so when they realized, okay, Silicon Valley is over here, these people are making crazy money if they invest in these startups, they know how to properly vet them, give them the resources that they need. These are becoming multi-million-dollar companies, and you're investing small amounts and you're winning big. And so it finally caught on in Atlanta, and then hopefully it's going to catch on all throughout. I know a couple other places, even as close as, New Orleans, Dallas, Memphis, they have these ecosystems that are growing. And so why can't we do it right here in Jackson?
So I guess my next question would then be, what are the challenges to doing that here in Mississippi, here in Jackson?
There are many of those. Mm-hmm. I often joke, I think this might be the most difficult city, given everything I've gone through since trying to come back in came back and started the Beam Path in 2018 to just help people with tech and give them some sort of tech help. We created tech help desk in the local libraries in 2018, and it really caught on. And so one thing I noticed is that people in our community, especially in Jackson and greater Mississippi, were not having these tech conversations. People didn't know about AI. They didn't know about virtual reality, didn't know about the emerging technologies. There wasn't a central place or a hub you can go to just to get educated on these things if you weren't already in that space. And most of the people who were in that space, they're going to the colleges and universities. We're a big college town. A lot of educated folks, they're ended up leaving. They're leaving and they're coming and they're leaving the state, right? And so what we're trying to do is say, hey, can we get some of these tech experts at these universities to help these people who need technical expertise at the tech help desk? And then can we work together to help build out products? I think the other thing is that we are oftentimes not aware of how this whole entrepreneurship process happens. A lot of times in our communities, we have a lot of mom and pop shops, and they're putting their own money into the business. They're making good money. We got a lot of barbershops, you got a lot of food places, but they're not able to scale. And they're also not often thinking very progressive when it comes to technology, because technology can really help you scale. It can help you offload a lot of things. It can help you be more productive. It can help you win more in terms of your finances. And so a lot of people in the tech world, they were able to make their money in the tech world, and now they're able to do other things and pour that back into the community. If you invest in one engineer, one scientist, one tech developer, most time out of 10, that person's going to come back and really help to further develop these areas that aren't as populated with these technical experts. So they're gonna wanna give back. And so those are some of the challenges that I noticed that we're trying to solve with Bean Path. So providing a place people can come. We're gonna welcome you with open arms. We're not gonna try to intimidate you. We're gonna meet you right where you are with technology, and we're gonna get you on the right path. Now, other areas, challenges could be investors. Now, at the end of the day, it takes money to build a business. And so how are you gonna convince the investors that these companies are ready? How do you get these companies ready? So we can partner with other organizations. Innovate Mississippi is one of them that has entrepreneurship programs. Succeed and Elevate is another one. And so we're hoping that these entrepreneurs are getting the tech help that they need to just give the privilege to think broader, the privilege to fail, basically is what it is. So we're gonna give you a little bit of capital and hopefully raise money in different ways. So that venture capital, that not even venture capital, but early stage startup capital, friends and family capital, seed round capital, that has to be accessible for these people to have that privilege to fail. And so that is something that needs to be brought to the forefront of our ecosystem. And then lastly, you have the government and the local policy that provides incentives for these people to do this. What's the incentive for me to stay here? What's the incentive for me to invest here? And make it clear for me, make it plain why I should come back. And that is something that I think government and policy can contribute to.
So, speaking of incentives, what would a perfect example of an incentive for the legislature be? For you, as someone in the tech space, is really one of the few folks we have in the tech space now, who's as notable as you are. What would creating this environment that we're talking about with all of those challenges, what would those incentives look like?
Right, so I think for one, if we can work on what tech jobs are offered here to help me come back.
So workforce development, essentially.
Workforce development.
Okay.
And also, and that's a broad spectrum. Okay, so there's folks that are going to college, there are people that are not going to college. You have to educate both. And there's different ways to do that. You have to provide opportunities for both. We have to provide higher salaries. So let's say, hey, for every factory job, you bring in 2 corporate jobs for every company that's going to invest in this state for a manufacturing plant. So what does that look like? Show us that you value us more than our physical labor workforce. Show us what that looks like, and put your basically, let's show us financially what that looks like. I think another way is in Atlanta, there's this leg of the city called Invest Atlanta. It's directly from the city. And what this organization does, it is very proactive in helping businesses come together, gathering their information, giving them technical services, showing them what grants are available, applying for those grants on behalf of the city to give to these businesses. And they constantly do this. There's always money out there. There's so much money. This past administration, there was so much money available for cities, so much money available for school districts. And I don't know how proactive we were in constantly putting that off the burden of the organization, taking that burden off of me as the business owner who's already, worried about just the woes of being an entrepreneur, and make it easy for me to apply for this funding by taking that on yourself. And that can happen at the state level, that can happen at the county level as well. And so Invest Atlanta also provides capital for businesses. They also work with the banks to make it where it's just a one-way in for me to apply one simple application, and you show me all the resources and all the capital that's available to me. And that is something that we can advocate with all the local banks, the CDFIs, the Community Reinvestment Act, and being more proactive, taking that burden off of me as an entrepreneur. I think there are other ways to look at this. We, Bean Path, we focus on youth, we focus on senior citizens, and we focus on small business owners. Those are people that are often left out of the conversation, they're often forgotten. And so I think building up that pipeline of youth and showing them how they can make money here, because a lot of tech jobs are remote. So a lot of people can actually stay in Mississippi if they knew that these opportunities were available to them. And so the state can be very proactive in figuring out where these jobs are and showing them, hey, we got the talent right here. Can you all recruit more heavily here for these remote positions? Again, like these are things that other states and cities are already doing, and it's not anything that is very difficult. You know, you hire a couple people that have that expertise, that grant writing expertise, they have great relationships at the federal level. Those who have actual business experience, that have actually scaled businesses before, that's the type of expertise that we need to create these sort of policies that help our people in the community.
Wow. And so, you know, it looks like you've already started doing the work with the inception of the Bean Path. Tell us a little bit more about the Bean Path, all that y'all have going on, the development over there, which I don't think a lot of people understand how massive it is and how massive the work that y'all are doing is.
Yeah, so I'm a visionary, and so no lack of vision over here. The execution, on the other hand, need a lot of help with that. All right, and so like I say, Bean Path started in the local libraries. We were doing tech help desk in 2018. We were at a certain point, it got so crowded, people were lined up at the doors outside the library to wait to get in to get tech help. And so I said, wow, we need to scale this. We need to do something to make sure we serve the needs of the community. And so I went looking for a building to purchase, and that was the big barn on North Gallatin Street. It was near the train station. And so I found out the same guy who owned that property, owned the majority of the property around it. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of, I think he was also looking to liquidate, you know, an older gentleman. And I know he thought I was crazy, you know, but I told him, you know, well, if you give me a good deal, you know, maybe I'll take it off your hands for you. And he did. And so fast forward today, and 2 other acquisitions happened after that. I now have 22 acres of land and 8 buildings downtown Jackson, North Gallatin Street, along North Gallatin Street. And we have opened 2 of those buildings so far that we've renovated. So one is the Bean Path Makerspace, or our headquarters. So we do all of our classes in there, everything from youth summer camps, after school programs. We have AI, robotics. We have adult classes in there. We do pottery, 3D printing, laser cutting. We do sewing classes. We do drone classes. We also have AI classes for senior citizens, for small business owners, AI for business. And we do a lot of contracts with other organizations and groups throughout the city too. Jackson Public Schools, we've worked with several universities as well, and a lot of small business owners. So over the past, which we're now celebrating 6 years, next month, the week of October 21st, we've impacted over 3,000 people with over 120 programs that we've put on so far. And these are programs that we are looking to scale beyond the footprint of Gallatin Street. Mm-hmm. We can literally partner with anyone. We've done work with people in Colorado. We've done work with people in Atlanta. And we want to make sure that we're providing an aid to the other folks in the ecosystem right here in the state of Mississippi. So later stages of that development include housing, retail. The second building that we're opening is our event space, the Bean Barn. Mm-hmm. And so we're starting to do food trucks on Sundays. We got an Uno tournament coming up. We got yoga we're going to start doing in there. People are now renting the space for events. Mm-hmm. And all that revenue goes back to Bean Path. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it where it's a sustainable model, and we're now able to scale a little bit easier that way. And hopefully we continue the development with the housing piece, which is also a big revenue generator, and able to provide a lot more economic development in the city.
So considering the challenges that we talked about earlier, what makes investing in the Bean Path a considerable ROI?
So I often say, if we could do it in Jackson, we could do it anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I think that when I'm talking to investors, a lot of my early supporters were not even in Mississippi. They thought it was great what I was trying to do. They were familiar with the area and they knew that something needed to happen. And so a lot of support, a lot of press, Inc. magazine, CNN, we're on several shows. Soledad O'Brien did an interview. That is really what helped me let people know, hey, I'm serious about what I'm trying to do here. That's what made a lot of other people locally lean in. from the government to the local banks. It was very difficult to get a bank loan in the beginning. I literally had the money in the bank. Had literally just sold a company to Amazon, right? So I'm like, there was so many.
It'd be easy.
You would think. I learned so much in this process, and so what I try to tell people is, hey, we could do it right here in Jackson. We could do it anywhere. We can come to your city. We can do this there. We can also make it where it's sustainable because the real estate helps, like I said, with the revenues. It helps with revitalizing the community. It helps with bringing the community together. And hopefully, eventually, we'll help stop some of the brain drain too by attracting larger tech companies. Hopefully some of the tech startups that we've been working with start to really grow. And now they're hiring people, so we're creating jobs. And so this is a very impactful investment, whether you're investing your time, your money, volunteering, providing your skill level or expertise to help us with the development. When I first went on this journey, no developer wanted to touch this project. No developer, even outside of Mississippi, even though I had great relationships with them, wanted to do work in Mississippi. So apparently Mississippi has a huge reputation for having issues with the government trying to help people like me who want to come in and do investments here get these developments done. It's a huge reputation. I don't know how much people know that. And so it was just very difficult. I had to become my own developer. I did not want to add real estate developer to my resume, but I now have real estate developer on my resume. So I had to figure out how to get it done. But ironically, it's kind of like a show and prove type of model here because now all the people, even those that didn't want to give a bank loan, are now knocking. There are other investors now saying, hey, they're paying attention to what we're doing. People are noticing that, hey, we haven't died out yet. It's 6 years, right? We're still here. And every year we got something new.
5-year mark.
Yeah, every year is something new. You'll see something new. I mean, are we growing at the rate I want us to? No. I'm the visionary. I got so much more than the vision. But every year we're making progress.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect place to end. What would your last words be about just creativity and ingenuity and what that has done in your life?
I think that you have to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur. That's a well-known quote, and I am a little crazy. I'm also very creative. I have this artistic side. I believe that tech is very much so a form of art. Developing apps, developing something new. My background, even getting my PhD, I know how to do research. Basically, a PhD means a stamp that you know how to do research. I know how to do experiments. I know how to try hypotheses out, do A/B testing, see what works, what doesn't work, pull back, adapt. The largest tech companies and the largest companies, period, that survive know how to adapt. We're constantly adapting. You can't stay still. And so I think all of that expertise, together with just my love for the community, very home-based. All my family's in Jackson. And so I've always wanted to come back. I just had to make it where it made sense for me to come back. And so, and I still work a full-time job at Amazon, but they're actually very flexible too in helping me. They're very much aware of the project, and I'm hoping to get more investment from them as well into the city, into the area. And so it really just, I think, I have the mindset that nothing's gonna stop me. Nothing's gonna stop this from happening. And if it does end, then it's meant to be.
I think that's the perfect place to end. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.